Extraordinary Nobodies was filmed in front of a live studio audience.
I think that the community, and I'm talking about the Negro community now, has just as much suspicion of the Negro officer as they do of the white officer. They sort of feel that he has sort of gotten out of the muck and has sort of gotten into the mainstream of society, and consequently he has joined the society that sort of controls their own destiny.
Welcome to episode 2 of the Extraordinary Nobodies. I'm K-Dot. That's Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Boo.
Yeah, okay. Well, we're using, a lower quality camera because the higher quality camera that I gave you was picking up entirely too much light. We couldn't see your translucent skin.
Yes, it's making me look even more translucent. Yeah, because I have a window that is only frosted glass. It does not have curtains to...
Yeah, so door in your fake library of intellectualism.
No, it's beautiful intellectual, and it has to have the natural light for reading.
I'm just saying, if anyone were to look at that shelf, which I'm not even sure if they could actually see you, because at least when it comes to the stream right now, you're just a pixelated fucking gobbledygook mess with a bunch of fucking piled books that look like you're a goddamn schizophrenic collecting.
No, these are all very intelligent books. Raise your IQ points by reading them. Okay. Raise your IQ points. Mm-hmm, yes. Well, how many books have you read? Let's ask that question.
It doesn't. The thing to me is like,
No. Answer the question.
Like front to back. Honestly, I don't know the answer.
Nor do I, because it's in the thousands.
Yeah, mine is definitely not in the thousands.
Yeah, yours is in the single digits, maybe. Have you broken 5?
No, I'm in the double digits as far as books read, but as far as...
Are you? Really?
Yes, asshole.
Front to back, double-digit books read.
Oh, my God.
Skeptical. I don't believe you.
Fair enough. You can be as skeptical as you want to fucking be. The fact that you would think that I don't read certain biographies, the fact that I don't read at least...
I think you spark notes them, and I think you read articles about them. I don't think you actually read the book.
I don't use this fucking spark notes anymore, asshole. And not to mention, as far as when it comes to books, at least nowadays, I haven't read physically a book front to back in...
Yeah, nor have I.
10, 15 years?
Aside from all of these. No, but
I do
I'm
audiobooks.
not even on. Yeah, I'm a Kindle guy, right? So I don't read them front to back physical. Yeah.
No, I'm on the road more than I'm on anything else, and what I do, I listen to audiobooks now. That's been the thing that I do.
Audiobooks when you're functionally illiterate. It's very useful too.
Motherfucker, do we want to pull up any text thread to see how you can't put together a goddamn coherent sentence half the fucking time?
I do not text like I read.
You can't type. You can't spell the same of your fucking life.
Spelling is the lowest form of intelligence.
The amount of books you'd read. The amount of books you'd read. I'd expect some of the goddamn words at least capture you. You scrolling through your fucking Kindle like a 60-year-old.
Form of intelligence.
Fucking old bastard, just fucking reading shit. And
I can't spell.
Put together.
I'm not ashamed of it. Spelling is the lowest form of intelligence.
Yeah, well, see, that's what I'm saying. We're cherry picking this, that, and the other to try to figure out exactly where it is you stand apart. And I will 100% say, if we're going to go to fucking HQ, maybe we'll do that here on this. I know I got a higher HQ to your bitch ass. I can guarantee I got a higher HQ to you.
What is an HQ?
Sorry, IQ.
No, you don't. You fucking moron. Yeah, there we go.
Prove my goddamn point. You know, spelling don't matter. And like, if I put the H instead of the I,
motherfucker.
If I put the H instead of the I, that's just misspelling. That's just misspelling. It's misspelling a lot of the letters. That's it. That's all I'm saying. My high HQIQ, just working out. It's showing. It's showing out right now.
Okay, let's move on.
All right, look, this episode we want to do
over here.
Oh, fuck you. We want to go through the 3, we're going to go basically what we always do, which we got a big story. After the big story, we want to tackle sports just a little bit, and then we'll get into entertainment. Entertainment right now is going to be usually The Last of Us. We've got a few other things we want to talk about there. And as far as in the sports realm, I mean, NFL playoffs, we got the gap between now and the fucking Super Bowl. Maybe we'll talk about the Pro Bowl there?
Well, I'm not talking about the Pro Bowl. I mean, we can. I watched the dodgeball on YouTube, but...
Well, we'll talk about the Pro Bowl, because I don't want to save as far as like a Super Bowl full preview or something else.
Okay.
We got too much time between now and then.
Yeah.
And then even beyond that, you had something about basketball as far as LeBron James.
Yeah, LeBron James.
We'll see
We're going to break this weekend or next week. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah, I know. FanDuel everything. They're allowing you to pick the date and put a bunch of money on it, so I haven't done that yet.
I'm not doubting. Yeah. It's a good bet for FanDuel.
But the main story that we're tackling this week, which is why I will say that I've been kind of dreading this one, because I knew it would happen again, because it's always happening. I know that me and you, the first time that we were really on a podcast together doing anything long form was on the All Sorts of Sports Network, where we did an episode about police brutality. I think that's either a year or 2 years ago at this point.
At least a year ago, probably a little more.
At least a year. It might be 2021 that we did that, but
yeah.
I don't know. I didn't even check the date. But this is all in the aftermath of the Tyre Nichols slaying by the Memphis Police Department. Yeah, I'm actually kind of frazzled even talking about this right now because I just watched a video before we turned on the cameras. I've purposely not watched it, but I thought that if we were going to discuss it or talk about it, that it was sort of my responsibility to see what happened. And I'm angry. I'm sad. I'm tired. I am sick and I'm exhausted by this conversation having to continue. I'm exhausted. There's another man dead, another family mourning, another family grieving. So I'll let you, what the situation is, Tyre Nichols, a couple blocks away from his home, gets pulled over by the police department. They say it was because he was recklessly driving. There's no dash cam video that has been released proving that. Then they switch over to the body cameras. It escalates from a basic traffic stop to them wanting to put him in cuffs or in custody. They start tasing him, and he jumps up, runs down the street. That's when their body cameras, as far as the first officers, turn off miraculously. And the camera is then picked up by another cop that shows up on the scene afterwards, and they proceed to basically almost like a gang initiation meeting. Stomp and kick and punch and murder the man while he's screaming out crying. And it's also caught on video from a camera that's across the street. And I watched a video where CNN linked the audio from one to the other. I almost regret watching it, but once again, I think that we had to. But I'm sure I'll get more coherent in my conversation as we go on, as I've been saying HQ instead of IQ already to start off the fucking pod. So I'll open it up with you. What happens next, man?
So first, I watched it when it came out. What was it, last Friday, I believe, a week ago. And I watched it in bits and pieces because I couldn't sit through it all as fucked up as it is, I've gotten desensitized to watching the police beat people, but it was the cavalier attitude they had. I don't know if you watched the end of it, where one of the cops goes, "Woo, boy, that was fun." And I'm like, you just beat a man to death, and you're talking about it like you had a fun night out. And I was just stunned and horrified and disgusted. And my first thought, honestly, was when I heard the name of the police unit, Scorpion. I was like, this sounds like We Own the City. This sounds like, what's his name?
Wayne Jenkins.
Wayne Jenkins' special unit. What was it? The gun task force, something like that. Gun Trace Task Force. I was like, as soon as you give me an acronym for a special police force, you know what I assume? I assume it's a criminal gang that beats people as part of their criminal activities. I don't assume it's legitimate. I don't assume it's a special task force that's really helping keep our streets safe. No, I assume it's another criminal gang because they're not supervised. We all know police oversight is a problem in general, but then you add to that the special units where the oversight is even less because, they're above and beyond. They're supposed to operate independently on their own. And what they do is operate independently on their own is they beat people to death, they shoot people to death, they rob people, they sometimes sell drugs, they defraud the system with overtime, and then they joke about it. It literally felt like We Own This City. That video did feel like a TV show on HBO about a gang of cops who were criminals in Baltimore, who did grossly abuse, over and over again, the poor black residents of Baltimore. Not only that, they stole from them. They didn't just beat them. They stole from them, and they turned around and sold the drugs that they were supposed to be taking off the streets right back onto the streets. I'm a little okay that I can still be shocked and appalled about the callousness of the police, because it means it hasn't gotten as numb as I have gotten about school shootings, where it's just like, okay, another one. But it is. It feels like, oh, it's another one. Like, we can't do this podcast about the police beating some poor unarmed black man or shooting him to death every week, because it would be the entire podcast would be discussing another time of police brutality. And that's fucked up. That's legitimately fucked up, is that we could do a podcast without any difficulty at all, a weekly podcast about the latest police brutality against an unarmed black man. We could do it that specifically. We could do it that specifically. What is the latest police brutality against an unarmed black man, and have no problem finding a new topic every week. And it's fucked up.
Couple things of what you said that sparked a lot of things in my mind. First, a little piece of trivia. SWAT teams. SWAT, the first SWAT team is in Los Angeles. It's the creator of the SWAT team. Do you know what SWAT stands for in SWAT?
I've heard it before, but I definitely don't know it right off the top of my head.
So nowadays, everybody says Special Weapons and Tactics. Now, the thing is, the creator of SWAT, he didn't call it that. It was the Special Weapons Assault Team.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't until decades after it was first. I mean, he was catching flack immediately after the name was called, but it took decades for them to actually change it to something else. And this is also the man who created, I forget his name. He was also the police commissioner or the top cop in L.A. when the Rodney King beating happened. As you can see, them trying to always have these clever names and these very weaponized or trying to sound cool like they're in a fucking movie. It's ridiculous, and it already shows like the militarization of the policing of police and how high intense they are in almost everything it is that they do, right? But then let's even go beyond that. So another thing you said was as far as your desensitization to everything. And I looked to the reason why I didn't want to watch the video. I'm never going to be completely desensitized to seeing anyone calling out, screaming for their life when you can tell that they feel as though it's over. To hear those final screams and cries for help. But I think it is because of like the episode that we did before this, because of everything that I was doing in 2020, Black Lives Matter, and with the protests in D.C. that were happening as far as in a response to the George Floyd incident and things like that. I'm more upset that I know that after I watch it, time will pass and life will go on. There's a guilt that I feel before I even watch the thing, that I know that life is going to go on. We'll accept this to some degree, and we'll keep going until the next one happens. And I'm not apathetic yet, but I am at a point, or I am at a level at which I'm just so exhausted by it. And I'm not sure that this country is ready for the things that need to happen to change it. I think it can be changed. I really do.
It definitely can be changed.
I just don't think we have the bandwidth to do
beat their citizens to death via cop. It's very rare in much of Europe.
Most countries didn't start that way either. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so it's like you look at what policing has been historically in this country, and almost majority of it is tied to some degree or another, keeping black people in line. You think about all the law enforcement people that got deputized trying to catch runaway slaves and trying to keep, after slaves were freed, trying to keep them in line down in the South. Them realizing that, maybe there are some rules to some of this policing. And majority of your police force in a lot of southern areas were also Ku Klux Klan members when you get to that particular point, early 1900s. It's so intricately linked with the oppression of a particular group of people. It's, to me, I look at policing, and I know that me and you had talked about, like, language matters, right? And how defund the police was a big thing at one point. And abolish the police became a thing now, too. And I think that what we need is a full reimagining of what police are, what law enforcement is supposed to do, and the way in which they do any of that. I think that what we are seeing, especially in this particular case, more than anything, is that if you do look into what Memphis has done over the last few years, a lot of things they did for police reform are evident in this case.
Of course.
There are all 5 officers that were fired and then most of them charged were all black. They're all in their mid-20s to early 30s, I think. Most of them were college educated, and actually have and are actually part of historically black fraternities. All part of what it is that Memphis was trying to do. Is one of the tenets that I had was making sure that the police force was more representative of the community that they represent.
Yeah, because Memphis is a majority black city, right? Yeah.
And Memphis's police force right now, last time I looked at the numbers, was 58% black, which is huge.
Huge,
for a police force, right? You then look at the quick reaction after the fact. 5 officers fired immediately, charged. Even a 6th officer that was there on the scene afterwards, he's on administrative leave because he wasn't there for it itself, but they said that he failed to act the way he should have necessarily in the situation, so they put him on administrative leave. You see a system in which, okay, there were police reforms, and they worked, but like almost everything we do in America, it was
caught on video because the body cams were instituted, even if some of the officers,
even though some of them weren't on, and the dash cam's not on during the proceeding, so that, and they're being held accountable for not doing that, right? So
exactly,
there's some of that, but like we do so much in America, we are reacting and not preventing. We are terrible at putting steps in place to stop things from happening. As much as we want to be there to react, whether it be a retribution or what we consider to be justice, which is always like an after-the-fact thing, right? Whereas, like, justice for all means preventing things that could potentially incarcerate us or potentially have us at the end of a police fucking boot. There's none of that. There's no conversation about or actual legislation, things being created that prevent majority of these situations from happening in the first place.
Yeah, that's one of the things I struggled with, is that the officers had been trained through Memphis Police Report in de-escalation, right? They had been trained not to do this. They did not even pull out their guns and shoot him, right? He was tased, but they did not resort to quote-unquote lethal weapons, right? And they had body cams on and dash cams on, and they knew all of this, and they were trained in all of this, and they still beat an unarmed black man to death. And then they were black officers, right? And they still beat him to death. Memphis took so many of the steps, as you mentioned, that we asked all police departments to take. They implemented better training. They hired from the community. They, trained in de-escalation. They trained not to use lethal force when not necessary. They got dash and war cams. And the man was still beat to death from officers who seemed to be enjoying themselves.
That was the other part of something that you said that bothered me when watching the video was the vernacular. And the carrying of conversation right after by the police officers felt like something I'd walk outside of my door and go hang out with some guys in the corner or some of my friends or family members, anybody, and hear that sort of speech in the same way. It felt they felt like they would just, like you said, like a gang. Like it did feel as though, like, just from a stereotypical standpoint, was like, hold on, what? The fuck was this? Like, y'all just chilling with this? Like, it's just good? Like, y'all talking about y'all hit him this way, hit him that way, that motherfucker did. It's like, whoa. And I think the thing that gets me is that, like, I know I talked about this when we did it last time, but when I talk about like changing police and the way we go about it, I remember telling on the other story, and I know a lot of people might know this if you watched it before, but I live in Baltimore, Maryland, same place that you talk about the gun trace task force and Wayne Jenkins and all that from We Own the City, home of The Wire. And when I first moved back over here, one of the first things I did was go on police ride-alongs with, if people are fans of The Wire. I did 2 ride-alongs in the Western District.
Ooh, yeah, baby.
Whenever you're doing clicking or something, would you stop?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, goddamn, man. It's a microphone.
Fiddling.
Jesus Christ, get a fucking fidget spinner. Yeah, low HQ having motherfucker. So
Fidgeting is a sign of high HQ.
Yeah,
I just made that up, but could be.
Autism. The so when I did that, I went and I wanted to know, because I was Lyft driving. I was a Lyft driver, and I was talking to someone that ended up being a staff official for one of the state congressmen, and we were talking about in the aftermath of Freddie Gray, and talking to him, and I was like, well, he said, are you interested in a ride along? And I was like, yes, because if I'm going to criticize the police force, I want to know what it is they're doing. I want to know. So it did sign the waiver, everything. They made sure they never took me around any neighborhood that I lived in out of fear that people might think that I was talking to police, rocking with the police, when I was just really trying to understand what it is they do. And I rode around that day, and I learned a lot. But there's one conversation I had with the first officer that I was with, and he's a former Army, saw combat. I forget which arena, but came back from Baltimore City itself, young black guy, and I asked him, because there was a cop shortage here in Baltimore that still exists, for what they say they need to properly patrol the city. And I asked, do you think more cops will fix this? And he laughed. He said, fuck no. What are you talking about? We're not there to prevent shit, brother. We're there to react after the shit already goes down. We don't stop crime from happening. Are you going to put us on every fucking corner? It don't work that way. We're there to respond to after the shit goes down. And here's the thing. When we respond after the shit goes down, most of our investigative units are absolute dog shit. Most people don't know how to put together a case to do anything. The community and the citizens that are there, they don't fucking trust us. Understandably so. We can't get past a certain point where even anything good out of law enforcement can actually bear fruition or do anything. As far as those investigative methods or something that happened after the fact, it's where there is sort of an occupying fucking force to potentially lay down the law if we see somebody out of line. But most of the time we're not seeing that. So what we do have to do is fish around for someone doing something out of line. And at that point, the interactions you have is not everyone you're interacting with is doing anything wrong. And you done fucked the whole thing up. Like, you look at almost any one of these things that I look at when it comes to majority of these incidents happen with some sort of traffic violation, a cop pulling a car over. How many of these things do we not necessarily need cops to pull a car over for? If you got an expired license plate,
vast majority, yeah.
If you got an expired license plate, does cop need to pull you over?
Send them a ticket in the fucking mail. Take a picture, send a ticket in the mail.
If your dash cam is on as an officer, can't you log the time you saw somebody run a red light or blow through a stop sign, and then, all right, we wind that up, put it on, give them a printout with the fucking thing, the same way they do speed cameras, and here's your fucking ticket, right?
And if necessary, it's summons to court. Yeah, if necessary, it's summons to court. Yeah.
If we're driving around, your car can't pass inspection, you know what we're gonna do? How about we send a fucking tow truck?
Yeah.
Let's get the car off the street. You got to come down and figure out how the fuck it is you're going to do. All these interactions they have with people that are so unnecessary and elevate the risk level for something bad to happen.
All the time. All the time. It's so... And, in my opinion, there should essentially be 2 levels of policing. There should be the level of policing that is the nonviolent, not immediately dangerous, which is the vast majority of policing that needs to be done, right? Your basic traffic stops, people making too much noise, people having a mental health crisis, all that stuff. Those need to be officers who don't have guns, don't have weapons, and are only empowered to write or send in tickets, right? Because let's be real. Obviously, these officers beat this guy to death, Tyre Nichols, with their bare hands. And that's awful, and boots. But that's much less likely than beating them to death with nightsticks or shooting them to death, right? And so if you have two levels of policing, because I would love to have one level of policing like they do in much of Europe, where no one except special officers carry guns. But with the fact that we have so many guns in this country, we probably do need people who have guns, other than just the SWAT team equivalent. And those people can handle the low-level offenses. There's no reason you should be for traffic stops, for noise complaints, for mental health issues. You should be interacting with an armed police officer. There's just that does no good and just elevates the risk for you. And frankly, it elevates the risk for the officer as well. And so, I mean, that's just one idea. And I completely understand it wouldn't probably have solved this one. Actually, it might have. Because the motherfuckers, there is no goddamn reason whatsoever for the Scorpion Task Force, supposed to be handling the hardened criminals and serious cases in Memphis, to be pulling over somebody for reckless driving when we doubt it was even, when there is serious doubt about whether he was ever reckless driving because they didn't follow procedures to do so. And it seems to me that the most likely scenario is it was a young black dude driving home at night and they found a reason to pull his ass over.
Yeah.
And so there's no reason for the Scorpion Task Force to be pulling somebody over for reckless driving. That is actually not even their job. So they completely ignored it. But, I'm just thinking about all the times I thought of during this video, during what I read about this, about We Own This City, about how this gun trace task force in Baltimore was set up not to be like what you described, not to be the serious task force to get guns and drugs off the street. And these motherfuckers were just pulling over people for no goddamn reason. And Wayne Jenkins and his buddies were beating the shit out of every black man with a backpack. Remember, he thought that anyone who had a backpack on them was carrying drugs, right? And this was not what the task force was set up to do. But they found that if you do this enough times, right, if you beat and search everyone with a backpack, you are going to find guns and drugs, right? Because some people are going to have guns and drugs in their backpack. And you have to set it up so that that's not incentivized in the police force. That's not, yeah.
That goes into my thought process is that, and I want to get back more to the racial dynamic of this, but before I do that, a good portion of me have always said that the reforms in which you could do to police and the way that you sell them you don't necessarily need to say anything racial, but the idea is police in its current form, law enforcement in its current form, does work in the sense of what it is the powers that be or the people with power want it to be, which is basically keep shit kind of housed to certain pockets or sections to the city and leave us alone in the areas that are less policed, right? In the areas that, because of economic mobility and opportunity, they're in places where they don't really have to interact with police because they're not present. We hear about the crime on the TV and the newspaper or whatever. Just throw more cops down there. Like, we'll gauge whether or not it's working based on the murder rate, but we don't really care because at the end of the day, we don't really interact with these guys anyway. So
as long as the crime doesn't come into our neighborhood, as long as it stays isolated and contained, and as long as not just the crime, but the over-policing, right? We don't want the police over here bothering us. We don't want the criminals over here bothering us. As long as they stay contained in the poor, primarily black and Hispanic neighborhoods, we don't have to think about it. We don't have to
exactly.
Yep.
And that's that thing. That's that. I don't give a fuck if you're conservative white, liberal white. People with money don't usually give a shit because they're not being exposed to the police at the same rate that other people are. And then if you go on top of that, then you look at population density. If you look at areas in which there's not a lot of economic opportunity and high density rates, you're usually looking at major cities, and those major cities in those areas are predominantly black.
And brown, and Hispanic,
and brown. And that's what happens, and that's where you're getting majority of interactions are bad, right? But then regardless of how many police you put in any of those areas, it hasn't helped as far as crime rates, murder rates, or anything else, because we have yet to address any of the root causes, which are mainly financial, which is where you have the big discrepancy between the haves and have-nots to me.
And not just financial, bro.
I'm saying majority. I'm saying Maine.
And I thought I
could date 20. Bro. What do you think?
I think the big one's prohibition, bro. Everyone gets rich. They're still gonna fucking buy drugs.
That to me is a financial thing. So, in my sense, is that if you are, I know what it takes to be on a street corner, earn a living selling drugs. Mm-hmm. I had a package once. Mm-hmm. I fucked it up and realized that the street game wasn't for me. It ain't me like that. Like I knew I fucked it up off the rip. I had to eat them. I had to take a loss off the rip. I had to take a loss. Why? Because I couldn't do this shit. Because you know what it meant? It meant grinding.
Of course.
It was grinding. It was if you have majority of the dudes on the street corner and you say, hey, I can let it be that you don't have to worry about at home whether or not gas is going to be on, whether or not electric's going to be on, whether or not everything's taken care of there. That your mom or whoever your parents are don't have to work 3 or 4 jobs to make a fucking living, so you don't feel some sort of guilt in having them provide for you. That also, I can provide for you an education and job opportunities to make it out of this area at a good clip, that you are going to have enough economic mobility to move up, right? Regardless of college education or anything, that promise, and you don't have to risk your life to do it. Mm-hmm. 9 times out of 10, you're going to take that.
What I'm just going to say is that, yes, that is true. You'd have a lot fewer drug dealers, I think, but... Yeah. But
users is a whole different thing.
Users, it would. Users is
a whole different thing, and that goes in that. And users go into what we've had as far as the pharmaceutical companies, what it is we're doing as far as the way that once again we're less preventative and more reactive to ailments and things, and mental health issues and lack of access to rehabilitation therapy, things like that. That all would help everyone, right?
Would help everybody.
Would help everybody, and that's why, like, majority of my tenets and things that'll fix things in the black community are things that also help poor white people and poor brown people, is universal health care, access to the same sort of medicine and doctors that people with money have, and then outside of that, the opportunity to own something, to build something, to be able to take chances and have a safety net. That means you're not going to be living in a rat-infested or roach-infested fucking government housing project.
If you own property, you are less likely to destroy your own neighborhood or accept other people just as a fact of life, right? If you own property, Bingo. You're not going to fuck up your own. You're not going to shit where you eat, right? And you're going to get pissed if other people try to shit where you eat. So it improves everything, right? And we know black rates of home ownership are
terrible.
Low.
But even without that, there are a lot of black people and a lot of people that live in these neighborhoods that don't own that still want to have the best possible anything because they take pride in that. But because of the numbers and because of the lack of seeing a valid option or a valid route out, you're left with the life that you're left and the choices that you have. And more often than not, there might not be choices that some of the viewers on here could comprehend or understand because they'd never be down that road. But they are very real, you know? So there's that, the economic aspect of it, and the things like that we could do to address all the preventative measures that you need police in the first place. Everything he said as far as the special units that they do in a lot of places. I know even in New Jersey they started doing it, where mental health professionals instead of police officers. Mm-hmm. Police officers started to become the Band-Aid of our entire society. If you see before you even call animal control, you usually call 911 or 311, and they might transfer you over to somebody or tell you to call somebody else. Motherfuckers call them for everything. In situations that are not needed. In this situation, they should never even be in the first place. And then the other part about it to me is that when it comes to policing, to me it needs to be they are the best of us. If we are trusting you with interacting in the general public with arms that could potentially kill people, I don't just want anybody to have that job.
Yeah, that's a big thing, yeah.
Is the quality of candidate and the specialization of the work. I actually think majority of police officers should be paid a lot higher than they are, but incentivized not to do the same bullshit tactics in which we are using, in which we like to put the war in front of everything, and that's how we run everything, because it's the only thing we know how to do here, is what are you doing to make sure that you're only attracting the best candidates? What testing do you do to revolve around how it is these people react under high-stress situations? Where is the trigger discipline?
Yeah. And psychological testing too. Like there needs to be, I brought this up on our last one, there needs to be rigorous psychological testing for people in law enforcement things, right? Even more so than the military, because the military rules of engagement are very, very different, right? And you want, in some cases, you want the military to have a quick finger, trigger finger, because you're at war, and if you don't, your ass is going to get blasted. But that's not the case for police. That 99.9% of interactions with the police in no way require guns, right? In no way require a gun to be drawn, right? So you need to have incredibly rigorous psychological testing that says, look, you're not a bad person. You're not. But you're not psychologically qualified to be a police officer. You react with fear too much with a fight response. Your levels of implicit bias are too high. Your levels of, your enjoyment of power is too high, right? Like I've heard it said before, I didn't invent it, but you don't want the neighborhood bullies growing up to be the cops, but you also don't want the kids who grew up being bullied to be the cops. You want the kids who grew up and stood up to the neighborhood bullies on behalf of others becoming the cops, right? And just like you said, there ain't that many of those people out there. Right. I don't qualify for that shit. So, So you know what? You're going to have to pay them a lot more because you need to recruit people like that to do the job. Yeah.
And then also said that if done correctly, there'd be a lot less of them needed.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Like the idea that if you are more of an investigative type of mind frame, more than what it is you need to do in street interactions, there's a route for you to take to become that within a police force that utilizes your brain to solve things, to put things together, to ask questions of people and interrogate them, to do those things that don't involve anything to do with what you're doing on the street. None of that. It's where is that connect?
That makes sense.
That's the thing is there needs to be specialized units that tackle different approaches to what happens and then how it is that they react to it. But there's some other things from just a technology standpoint, as we talked about, the amount of times that people are getting pulled over that don't need to be. We go all over the place, see cameras fucking all over. They use cameras for fucking most of the tickets and everything, and then your license gets suspended, and then what? You got to summon for a court date. Of that, you got an arrest warrant, and then we can get to that particular point where maybe a specialized unit that is designed on dealing with that specific thing in the least dramatic way possible handle that. But if we get to that point, right? That's the first line of fucking defense.
Yeah, the arrest warrants who should be served should be. There is, of course, a need to serve arrest warrants if the person is dangerous, right? If you're out for an outstanding arrest warrant for wanted for murder, the cop needs to pull you over right then and there. But 100%. You know what? Because you missed court date or you're late on your child support payments, your ass does not need to be pulled over by a armed police officer to arrest you and risk the confrontation escalating into serious injury or death. Like that, there's no need for that. And again, the vast majority of people aren't wanted for assault or murder or whatnot, right? That's a tiny fraction of people who are wanted out there. And yet, for so many, the arrest procedure is the same. They come for you because you're important enough and they come with a tactical team, right? Or your ass just gets looked at by a cop and he pulls you over and, guns drawn, drags you into the back of his cop car. But again, you see the injustice in the legal system because when these white-collar criminals, who are mostly white, right, they have a little date and time where they get to go to surrender themselves at the courthouse.
Make sure the press isn't out front.
Make sure the press isn't out front. Yeah, have your attorneys hold up the towel as you walk in, right?
Right.
Your date and time is there. And then once you get convicted of the fact that you were defrauding millions of people, well, we're going to set the date for your sentence to show. So we just want to make sure you show up for prison on the day that you're, supposed to. Which is
my last thing to say on this, and I'll give it to you if you have anything else before I'm good to move on, is basically the thesis of everything I'm saying right here is this, and it's going to be what I continue to say. There is a systematic failure across all lines when it comes to policing in America. Also, slow your breathing down. God damn, I'm fatter than you. I can hear you goddamn, you just breathing in the mic.
Are you sure it's not the fan?
No, 100%. It's you breathing in the mic. It's like, you know, stuffy? Sound fucking whistling.
Yeah, it is stuffy.
Oh, God, dude. And utilize mute. You got a mute button. Use it. Use the fucking thing.
These things. I'm not Mr. Professional Podcast.
I know.
I muted myself as I was talking.
Homeless shelter.
I was testing it.
Jesus Christ. All right, get your shit together. All right, man? Not to mention, I can think I can hear myself through you. I'm not even sure if your headphones are on.
My headphones are on, no, but it's the wrong microphone's on.
You fucking moron. All right, so this is why you test run before you're 10 minutes late to the goddamn show anyway. All right, final thesis there for this is this. There is a systematic failure across a plethora of fucking lines when it comes to policing in America. There is absolutely a fact that you do have racist-ass people that are in the positions of power, but you also have people that are just not ready to do the job. And you have maybe a select few that are prepared to do the job. But the way in which we utilize them puts everybody at a disadvantage because it allows the racist cop, it allows the cop that's just not ready to deal with the situation to be in too many interactions with the public in which it's going to go wrong or it's going to go left too many fucking times. And what we're going to continue to see, and we'll forever see, are these terrible, terrible interactions that happen. And because of population density, because of the fact that people want to keep the crime out of sight, out of mind, you're going to have more of those interactions happening on the negative side between black people and police officers. And that shit needs to fucking stop. Because every time it fucking happens, I lose not only more faith in the police department, which I don't really have any to begin with, but I lose more faith in the institution of this country. I lose more faith in what it is that my life means in the eyes of this country, which is not something that is easy to carry around as far as that weight. The weight of already being considered or thought of as a second-class citizen whose lives amount to coming up next at 8 o'clock, watch the video from this thing that happened. And it fucking blows. And I can't articulate how tired I am of it. I can't articulate how much it hurts. I can't articulate how much it just pains me every time it does happen. My heart breaks, and I lose faith in everyone. And I get angry, I get upset, and then I realize that I have to go forward another day. Even though majority of the time in this society and the way that things do, the amount of stress and everything it causes, it makes you not want to. And I just, stuff needs to happen, but it takes people getting their heads out of their asses about this and stop with the bullshit and the performative nonsense and the things that make us feel better and the half measures that make things after the fact better. We need to prevent the shit from happening in the first fucking place. And there are things we can do to do it, but no one's serious enough about doing it. And it's the same way that I criticize myself and other people about continuing to watch the NFL when I got criticized for the NFL, is we continue to participate in this society, in this fucking world, in this government, and all this bullshit just to make it to another fucking day. And at the end of the day, a lot of times I do think we'd probably just be best served burning the whole motherfucking thing to the ground. Because we can start anew, and I'd be okay with that. Because I don't think things could be a lot worse than they are right now.
Okay. Well, I take issue with that things can't be a lot worse than they are now. They can always be worse. Trust me.
I know. You speak from the Palisades, where there's the one officer that sits in the corner of Arizona and MacArthur and behind the Wells Fargo. And you guys are completely chill, other than the other cop that's sitting on MacArthur, who's just there in a car to act as a goddamn speed camera. Yes, I get it.
But I'm saying there is no rock bottom. Doesn't exist for humanity. There's new lows discovered. So don't tempt fate by saying here things can't get a lot worse. Things can always get worse.
I'm tempting fate to be okay with getting worse, if that's the case.
Better.
To get better, but even in that sense, it's like I live in a city, in an area in which there's an occupying force harassing me and the people around me. And every time I leave to go do anything, I have a chance of not making it back home. And the thing is that it's one thing being it from people that are poor, disadvantaged, making wrong decisions, or trying to come up and make a lick. I get that on a human-to-human level. I don't like it. I think there are things that we can do to address that are not happening. But there's some fundamental understanding of humans are humans, and that's what it is. When I look to the people that are supposed to protect and serve, supposed to be the front line and the first face of basically the government, of the institutions there designed to help us, and they're here to hurt me, sucks.
That does suck. It's awful. And what I'll say is a little bit different tack. We'll discuss this, I'm sure, at some point later. But I agree with everything Kadeen said, except that things can't get much worse. Things can always get far worse. Is that drug legalization and regulation, or at very least decriminalization, it's not a panacea, but it will help a fuck ton. It would prevent a huge number of interactions between police and citizens that don't need to happen right now. And getting pulled over for whatever reason they stay, when we know the reason is really to search the person for drugs so they can arrest them, right? If that's no longer something you can arrest somebody for, that interaction goes out the window, right? So there are many reasons that I think the drugs should be legalized and regulated, or at very least completely decriminalized in small amounts, and medium to small amounts for everybody. But we'll get into that another topic. But that is a policy that I've always thought doesn't get talked about except for weed and sometimes shroom.
No, you're 100% right. It is the number one thing. Yeah. It is the number one thing.
Yeah.
It is literally the number one thing. It is the bane of so much wrong in today's society.
Yeah.
You're 100% right. Majority of people, if you haven't watched The Fucking Wire or We Own the City or anything, David Simon has been screaming
Season
this
3, baby.
for 2 decades.
Season 3. Look at the numbers.
Reform, Lamar. Reform.
Oh. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Did you just try to do a Brother Mouzone voice? Did you try to mimic me doing a Brother Mouzone voice?
I did. It wasn't a good Brother Mouzone voice.
Yeah, watch yourself, man. You're 2 steps away from saying the N-word as we're rapping in the car. Okay? Just chill out. You gotta do that. Chill out. All right. So on to sports. Conference championship weekend was last week. We now have our Super Bowl matchup. The goddamn Eagles beat the San Francisco 49ers. The Kansas City Chiefs beat the Cincinnati Bengals. What were your thoughts? I don't need any predictions on what's happening with the Super Bowl, but what did you think happened with the games that happened last week?
So I'll start with the one that was a good game. The the Chiefs versus Bengals. Yeah. But yeah, that was just I misspoke. Yeah. No. So Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. He played like the best quarterback in the league with 1 foot.
Easy.
He's awesome. I was super impressed with both defenses, actually. Like, it was a struggle to put up points and yards in that game, both Cincinnati things. Joe Burrow did make a couple mistakes, which I think were essentially the difference in the game. But at the same time, Joe Burrow made some amazing throws. And the wide receiver, even before all the injuries Kansas City had to their wide receiver core during the game, the difference in wide receiver quality for Cincinnati to Kansas City is stark. Like, Joe Burrow could just throw the ball up there, and T. Higgins or Jamar Chase was gonna bring that motherfucker down
all day.
Patrick Mahomes had to bob and weave and hope somebody got open and make a pinpoint pass to hope that it was a completion down the thing. Now, he was able to do it because he is Patrick Mahomes. Also, the game was... I'm not going to blame the officiating for the loss of Cincinnati. I think Kansas City was the better team and played better, but the officiating was horrific in that game. It was awful.
I'm not as harsh on the officiating in that game.
And the second game, I mean, there's not much to say. The 49ers lost all their quarterbacks, and they got blown out, and their defense lost their minds in frustration and decided to commit a fuck ton of penalties and try to fight the other team. So, sometimes the wheels just fall off the car when you're down to your 4th-string quarterback who then gets injured, and you have to go back to your 3rd-string quarterback who can't actually throw the ball because he has a 6-month elbow injury. And then you have a blowout. Yeah.
All right, so going back down, I'll start off by saying the parlay that I mentioned in the last episode did not go my way. Outside of that, as you can tell, just based on the way that the fucking game went. But as far as the Bengals-Chiefs game, as I've been saying all year fucking long, Patrick Mahomes is the shit. He heard all you fuckers talking about that there was another guy on the block, Burrowhead Stadium, all that nonsense. Mahomes is so clearly better than anybody else playing football right now. It's not even fucking fair. And I still don't think we've touched his fucking ceiling. I don't think we're close to his fucking ceiling, which is what's terrifying to me. Just imagine what Patrick Mahomes looks like with the wide receiving core of the Cincinnati Bengals. Oh my God. Like there's things that he will be able to do that we just can't fathom right now. Also, Arrowhead Stadium. Fucking home field advantage like a motherfucker. Joe Burrow is known for getting a selection of plays before he goes to the line of scrimmage, in the huddle, and when he goes to the line of scrimmage, and what he's able to do is kind of audible or create a situation that's going to be most beneficial to his players. You can't quite call audibles or even have good conversations in the huddle when Arrowhead was that goddamn loud. You hear Chiefs fans that say Arrowhead was louder than they've ever heard it. Great fucking work. Kansas City, you heard the Bengals fans, who I also have to admit, thank you for revealing yourselves. You guys weren't ready for that win because you guys are fucking assholes. I'm not saying that you're permanently going to be assholes, but you guys need to figure out how to be a good fan base. We were giving you praise after the DeMar Hamlin thing. But, goddamn, son. All that shit talking and then afterwards, it's the refs. Stop the bitch. You keep the same fucking attitude all the way through. Keep that same energy. And I'm also not blaming the officials anyone near as much as a lot of people are. As you thought, it was a fairly good call game. I know that people talk about like the 3rd and 9 thing, which I don't understand why anybody's up in arms about that at all. It makes complete sense based on what happened. And then you got
like poorly executed. That's why people are up in arms.
Once again, if you're talking about Arrowhead being louder than it ever has been, if you got some guy yelling and waving coming down on the field like, hey, pay attention to me, and you can't fucking hear them, the play gets off. And then what a lot of people won't mention is that, number one, a punt happened, so it didn't fucking matter anyway. And then number two, it didn't matter. But number two, if Kansas City threw a touchdown on that play, guess what happens? It gets called back because they tried to blow the play to it. So it literally didn't fucking matter.
No, it was just incompetence by the refs, though. The refs
I don't think it was incompetence by the refs. I think that because of the situation at hand in Arrowhead, in that particular situation, not to mention the clock just randomly starts going. No one expects that to fucking happen. And nobody expects that to happen in playoff football.
The clock operators are also incompetent.
Right. Give me more on the clock operator. Who the fuck started the clock, right?
But if you're going to stop the play, you got to run down. And you kind of keep waving your hands.
He tried.
I know, but he stopped because he's like, the play's going.
Because the play's already going.
No, motherfucker, run down. You're a ref. Sometimes you get hurt. Get yourself in there.
At the end of the day, what you end up doing is that happens in football. You see them get the playoff. You see it. Usually
we do. But generally it's like a dirt ball, right? Because somebody.
Right, but the play developed because of how loud the fucking stadium was. I'm just saying that there was you don't usually see that particular situation.
He didn't run down and stop the play. Yeah.
Here's the thing. If somebody had gotten hurt, I get it. You really need to stop that play. There needs to be something. But I don't look at the ref as one human being trying to run down on the field to stop anything. I think maybe what you should do is have maybe a button or something that the ref can play to pull a sound or stop a play or red lights go flashing or fucking something. Help them out in the situation. I think refs get a really, really bad rap.
Technology, I agree. No. I don't think refs get a bad rap. They're bad. Fuck the refs.
As far as the Eagles-49ers game, the game was over the moment Brock Purdy got hurt, but there's one takeaway that I do have from it, is that as much as we gave Kyle Shanahan a bunch of credit for what it is he was able to do with Brock Purdy and that team going through, I also have to criticize the unprofessionalism of that team once they knew that it was out. And also, look, I don't know how you can have a quarterback that looked as incompetent as Josh Johnson without somebody catching some flack for that. And I point at you, Kyle. This is a situation where you already see the luck that you guys have had when it comes to quarterbacks. I think you'd have a contingency plan just in case it were to happen. You don't think Ryan Fitzpatrick not sitting at home say, the 49ers might take me on a playoff run, I'm not going to go do that? There are tons of guys sitting at home that would have absolutely done better than Josh Johnson did. But then outside of that, I don't give a fuck who you got back there at quarterback. I was looking at the stats of the body bag game. Everybody knows about the Eagles and the Redskins played back in the 90s. Mm-hmm. We lost our starting quarterback and our backup quarterback, and Brian Mitchell, one of the best punt return specialists in the history of the game, had to then play quarterback. That motherfucker in a non-playoff game, not the game to get the Super Bowl, got 6 passes off. You had McCaffrey throw 1? Like, you try shit. They also had a guy on the roster that was a star fucking high school quarterback. You make shit happen. You give it a shot. What they felt like they did the moment...
the white flag. Yeah.
They waved, and that is inexcusable in a game where you're talking about going to the Super Bowl. And it's also inexcusable when early in that game, they were in that fucking thing. They were there. They were in it. You got to pull all the stops
at the beginning, in the second quarter. Yeah.
And then even the 7 points is the Devonta Smith non-catch. So it's like you look at that and you're like, you're right there, guys. The fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I agree. Shanahan, as soon as Josh Johnson got concussed on the first series in the second half, I didn't think they had much shot of winning, as like you said, when Brock Purdy got injured. But as soon as Josh Johnson got injured, Shanahan he gave up. Like he completely gave up. And they were down 2 scores, but you can't give up. It's your season's on the line, right? Yeah.
You throw all the stops out at that one.
Throw all the stops out.
You have to. As long as you're not putting anybody at like severe risk of getting hurt.
Risk of injury, yeah. Like
Then
you throw all the stops you can do when you're not putting people's lives at risk. Like see what you can make happen. Like who cares? You already lost 31-7. Who cares if you lose 55-7? It doesn't fucking matter.
It doesn't matter.
Your ass
just try to get in the field goal range and kick it. It's points, motherfucker. Like just do something. Like just do something. But it just felt like a team that really did wave the white flag, and I've never seen that in a playoff game.
And then got frustrated, and then got very frustrated and decided to start fighting.
You see teams that are down by like 5 scores in the fourth quarter still giving it their fucking all because you never know what's going to happen, right?
I see it happen in the regular season a fair bit, where a team waves the white flag, and then the defense decides they're going to fight people instead of play the game. I've never seen it happen in the playoffs.
Which is why I specifically looked for the body bag game. And when I saw Brian Mitchell with six passes, I'm like, Kyle, what are you doing? What the fuck are you doing, man? All right, you wanted to talk about LeBron James and his chance of catching Kareem, right? All-time
Not chance,
score.
He's going to. Yes.
Oh, he's going to. Well, I mean, unless something.
So first, LeBron James, who was one of my favorite players in the NBA, then least favorite because he started beating the Wizards in the playoffs, then became my even more least favorite because he went to Miami, and then became one of my favorite players again because he came back to the Cavaliers when the Wizards weren't that good, and then became a dislike player again because he went to the Lakers. It's been a whole roller coaster ride with LeBron James. But regardless of that, I have to stand in awe of the man. The man is 38. He's putting up 30 fucking points a game on over 50% shooting from the field. He is scoring like he's 28. It's ridiculous. And he's going to break in the next couple of days, sometime by next weekend. It'll be broken. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's all-time scoring record, which so many people thought wouldn't exist. And lots of people are saying, oh, this is because athletes are performing better and staying healthier longer and, with nutrition and things. Now, that ain't the truth. Because most of LeBron's compatriots are either winding down their careers or long gone. Because the problem is in the modern NBA, it's not so much that you get injured, like in the 90s and 80s when you got the shit beaten out of you. It's that the pace and space game forces you to get out of the NBA. If you can't run, if you can't keep up, you're gone. You're no longer employed. You physically may be healthy, but if you don't have that speed, that twitch any longer, you're out of the NBA. You can't play any longer because you're too big of a liability on defense. And LeBron has not only survived, but thrived. Another All-NBA, first-team All-NBA season. I mean, it's just mind-boggling that he has been this good for this long. And he doesn't have the championships Tom Brady does, but I think we're going to talk about him similarly in terms of longevity as Tom Brady is when all is said and done, because of just his ability from when he was 18 and he came into the league to 38 to still be an amazing player all the way through. So props to LeBron. It's unbelievable what he's doing. He deserves to break the record. His longevity is just ridiculous.
No, yeah, all good. I remember watching him in middle school. Him playing in high school and middle school.
Remember when he got drafted? Yeah.
Yep, remember all that. There is an NBA story that I just remembered happening because it just happened today. Kyrie Irving is requested a trade from the Brooklyn Nets before the trade deadline. Thank you, Jesus, for the Brooklyn Nets being the most disorganized franchise in the league.
You weren't enjoying them being competent and making a strong push.
I never bought it. I kept saying every year. In another podcast when I did a season preview of the Nets, the only thing I said is that something's going to happen. Like there's no way that they stays calm in Brooklyn. It's an impossibility. And I think right now, as I've always said about Kyrie, and I stole this from Ryan Russillo. He's the first person who said it. He's the worst business partner. He's a great he's a great dude.
He's having on the field, on the court, amazing season again.
The worst business partner. So I need to see LA and Brooklyn, make it happen. Send Kyrie over to LA to play with Bron, and send Russ over to play with KD. Just pure chaos.
No, oh my God, that's not fair. Russ is so much worse of a player than Kyrie is.
Pure chaos.
Pure chaos. I was surprised when I saw that this afternoon that Kyrie requested a trade because his contract is up this season, right? So he's a free agent, and there's no franchise tag in the NBA, and because the Nets have played themselves into top 4 contention in the East, so the team is not bad on the court. I was just stunned that happened. I didn't get it because he's free in a few months anyways, and his team is good, and he's having a great season. So I mean, it just didn't make sense to me. But then again, so much of what Kyrie doesn't make sense to me anyways. Yeah. So
that's what makes it make sense. Things. You know what? I knew something was happening.
What?
There was enough news coming out of Brooklyn.
It was too quiet. Everything was going too nicely. They were winning games, scoring a lot of points. Yeah, quiet.
They're not content with that. There has to be a way that they get in their own way.
There has to be some drama.
Outside of sports, this is the entertainment segment we like to end the episode on. I do want to start getting into Oscar conversation soon. I watched finally The Banshee of Inisherin last night, which has now cracked my top 5 list of movies in 2022. So great job for them, Banshee of Inisherin. But there's one show that we talked about last week that we're going to continue because I think, Brennan, you're completely caught up with The Last of Us.
Yes. First, Banshees of Inisherin, amazing TV show.
Movie?
Not TV show, movie. Depressing as shit. Tough watch, but phenomenal.
I didn't find that depressing.
You didn't know I did.
I laughed really hard at that movie.
There was a lot. There was a lot of humor, but there was also a shit ton of tragedy. On to the rest of the Last of Us. So I did catch up, watch the last 2 episodes. It's incredibly good. Best
show on TV right now.
Yeah. Episode 2 was exactly like I assumed the show was going to go. Not so much that because I have a basic outline of the story from the video game. I didn't know, for example, that Joel's wife was not wife, but longtime girlfriend. 1 second.
Yes. As Brennan goes and beats his wife or dog, the same thing in his boat. I really wonder what the quality of that camera looks like. It's going to look in the final cut because it looks terrible as far as streaming. Maybe this is how we started GoFundMe to try to get Brennan to get some, money to raise his game.
What?
Nothing.
Are you mocking me again for my dog barking? Yep. Yeah. So second episode, amazing. I didn't know his girlfriend was going to die, but I figured something bad was going to happen to her because I knew she wasn't in the video game the whole way through. And but then the episode 3 was absolutely stunning. It was a wonderfully done post-apocalyptic gay love story that just caught me completely by surprise. Just stunning. And it was so well done. It made me shed a tear at the end of it. I was just like, how is this so good? From what I assumed was going to be a whole show about a guy and a girl bonding over an extended, terrifying road trip across the country. And you shoehorn something like that into it, and not only does it work, it's like the best episode so far of the series. Just, hats off to the creators of it for doing that.
It's a bang-up job. Big time, episode 3 is the first time. So episode 1 and episode 2 are damn near a shot-for-shot recreation of the video game. Not shot-for-shot, but it's close. It's really, really close. If you play the video game as I did, you're feeling all the beats. When you get to episode 3 and you start seeing, okay, this is Bill. Do you know Bill from the game? It's like, okay, Frank. You hear about Frank in the game. So, but then it takes a very strong departure from anything that was happening in the game. And it's like, we have our own stories to tell in this series, and they're good. And it was like, okay, this is the game-changing episode. This is the episode that makes you, I know that they've elevated their abilities, and this is going to be must-see TV week in and week out. The cast is sick. it's been phenomenal television, and the fact is that, like, while being a zombie show, but not a zombie show at the same time, because it's about a different sort of thing. It's a fungus. It's but even outside of that, the way that they are,
zombie show. They just call it
it's a zombie show.
Zombie show.
But, yeah, there was some talk about that when The Last of Us was there. It was kind of like, well, there's more than one kind of creature, and it's like, yeah, I get it.
Pretty much zombie show. Yeah,
it is. But the thing is, but what I do appreciate of it is that the way that the sickness itself takes root. And the human interaction aspect of it, to me, feels more in line with what would actually happen compared to a lot of other zombie things. Or when they talk about, like, zombie civilizations and stuff like The Walking Dead, it just goes off the reservation to something really dumb. This, to me, keeps it kind of elevated. I do love it. To me, The Last of Us always felt like the best possible parts of a zombie, like the best parts of season 1 of Walking Dead with Children of Men. Like that to me was almost it's that great combination.
I didn't think about that, but strong Children of Men vibes.
It gets a lot of Children of Men vibes. Yeah, it's vibes, like so. I think the combination of those two things, it's kind of sci-fi-ish to a certain degree, but it's just it's if you're
dystopian.
Not,
like because it's
dope shit.
Yeah, it's so good, and highly recommend it. And what was the other thing? Oh, one of my favorite things was Nick Offerman is just playing gay Ron Swanson in a whatchamacallit, in a dramatic role instead of a comedic role. I was like, this is Ron Swanson over here. He has his bunker, his guns. He knows how to make everything. He's a survivalist who hates and doesn't trust the government. Yeah, it was great.
Good, man.
And the HBO people are more than smart enough to know what they were doing when they casted Nick Offerman in this role, being like, people are going to figure this out, pretty quickly, And Nick Offerman was phenomenal, so good.
It was great, but who stole the show to me is Maury Bartlett, who also plays the manager of the White Lotus in season 1 of White Lotus.
Oh my God, Armand, my favorite character in this first season.
This motherfucker's having a run right now between these two shows on HBO that's just like, whoo! All right, great job, man. And then also I saw was it Nick Offerman on was it Kimmel? Yeah, it was Kimmel. And Megan Mullally, his longtime wife, partner, is the one that told him he's got to take the role because he wasn't gonna do it. He had scheduling conflicts, and apparently she read and like, no, you're going there. This is what's happening now. Did you read the thing?
You've watched whatchamacallit, right? Parks and Recreation, right?
Not all the episodes, because Parks and Rec early on rubbed me the wrong way. I thought it was very not funny.
His wife. What's her name?
She's in the show. I know. Yeah. Megan
she plays one of his ex-wives in the show.
I've seen that.
And their interactions is so
phenomenal.
Just good. Yeah.
They're so
good.
They're great.
Yeah.
They're great.
Yeah.
All right, so Last of Us, I mean, if you watched all the way through that, you should have already watched because there's a ton of spoilers. If not, I mean, even if you got spoiled, it's still fucking good.
Even if you got spoiled, it's so good. Yeah.
Like, this episode to me didn't feel anywhere near as good as the first episode, but I also think my energy's off because of the topic at hand.
There was less conflict. It was more depressing, and there was less conflict. It's just going to happen. Sometimes there's a topic that we need to discuss like this that we largely agree on, and it's sad and serious and less comedic than me having disdain for rural white people. And, some episodes are going to be like that. Yeah.
Then we get there. I mean, me and you had a hell of a conversation the other night about, what were we talking about? But equitable wealth redistribution between black and white people and all kind of stuff.
Yes. Well, it was more than that. Yeah. It was about affecting change in this country and strategies. Affecting
change, right.
Yes.
My dislike of white people. All right.
Yes. Well, that comes through in every conversation.
As it should. So, that's been episode 2. The Boys in Blue. That's the name of the episode. The Boys in Blue.
That's the name of the episode? Okay.
That's the name of the episode. We're stoked.
Bold name. Yeah,
Wayne Jenkins is on the cover.
Wayne Jenkins is on. Just to go back to that, it was surreal how much all of it lined up with the gun trace.
If you do not listen to the Ringer's content on entertainment, you have not lived until you've heard Chris Ryan's impression of Wayne Jenkins. And in the rewatchables, the category is no longer would Danny Trejo be better in the movie. They asked, would Wayne Jenkins be better in this movie? And hearing Mallory Rubin, who I adore, Baltimore's queen, or the Baltimore area queen, from hearing her do Chris Ryan's impression of Wayne Jenkins in the movie Big with Tom Hanks is one of my funniest moments I've had in the last year. Just absolutely great. All right, so that's been it. See you guys. Till next time.
Bye. Bye.